Okay, if you own a 348, you may have dealt with the climate control module, and yours may work perfectly, but apparently a lot of people have a lot of problems with them. Mine is occasionally throwing error codes. You have to turn the heat all the way up to high to actually get heat out of it. It just seems very problematic, and my question was, can it be replaced with a simpler system? And the answer is yes, but wow, did it take a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it was a huge pain in the butt to do. And I don't want you blowing up your car or burning up your car. This is just sharing knowledge of what happened with my car. So I don't guarantee that this works for everybody, and it is a lot of work. What I did was I wanted to use slider cables to control some of the things that are control of solenoids on the current car. So looking around on eBay looking for something with slider controls, I ended up with a Miata climate control panel. You can get these things for like 45 or 50 bucks, and it's got 3 sliders on it, and it also comes with a rotary knob for the blower control and a push button for the AC. The tricky thing is it doesn't look real big, but it is fairly wide. It's too wide to fit into the console of the Ferrari, and the mechanical stuff out back actually expands outward, so it's a pretty big rig. What I ended up doing was popping the front panel off and then cutting, so I have slider controls separate from the buttons. The buttons screw in the back of the thing, so you can actually unscrew it and take that whole switch assembly out. So that is a 1990 to 1997 Miata climate control panel. Also from the same years, you need a resistor, the blower resistor harness. It's like 30 bucks off eBay, but you'll need it to wire into this thing so that you can actually run your blower motor. Other bits and pieces you'll need: this is a very primitive air conditioning thermostat, and it's just got a twist knob here, and then this is the probe that goes into the evaporator that's in the car. So it comes wound up, but you have to unwind it, run it up into the front trunk, and there is a probe currently in the evaporator, and you pull the old style or the fancy style electronic probe out, and you just stick the end of this probe in and then mount that to your console. Also, this is a heater control valve that you'll need to turn the heat on and off, and it comes with a little cable clamp. You can get these pretty much any place that does air conditioning supply, like Nostalgic Air, but most of those come with a, I believe it's a 5/8 piping, and you actually need a 3/4 for the Ferrari to fit well. So if you, believe it or not, get a heater control valve for a 1970 International Scout 4-cylinder, you'll get something that looks just like this, but it'll have 3/4 inch, and that'll fit the piping right, and it won't leak on you. Sorry to start this with a lecture, but sort of an overview of what's involved. So there are 3 huge steps involved in this, so I kind of wrote them out here. You have to do a console replacement panel. You have to do the mechanical side, which is the cables and levers that are going to replace what the solenoids were doing. And then you have to battle the electronics for the blower motor and the AC switch. A very primitive, here's my drawing of the console panel that I ended up doing. I ended up doing the sliders vertically instead of horizontally because the mechanism actually sticks out and takes up quite a bit of room, and if you put it horizontally you couldn't fit all the mechanism in between the bolsters on the side of the console. Cutting these out was a real pain in the neck. I presume you could take it someplace that does like laser cutting and they could take your old panel and redo it. I did mine by hand. I used two thin aluminum sheets that I then bonded together for the main body of it, but I found trying to get good squares was impossible. So on the face of this I used a thick plastic sheeting like you use for a binder divider, and with that I could, with a sharp knife, I could cut out pretty good squares. So after I did my two aluminum sheets bonded together, then I put the plastic over that, bonded that on, and then painted it. You can judge the results when we get to that part, but it's reasonable. The other tricky thing about the panel is the gauges and the electronic cluster that hook to the back of the panel. There are little pins back there on the original plastic molded one, so you're going to have to put some sort of plastic things to receive screws so that you can screw the instruments and the control panel up there. So yeah, I spent many hours battling that. On the mechanical, this is my incredibly crude drawing. It's basically the front trunk. There's the airbox. There's the flapper valve that controls recirculation versus fresh air. So you have a servo on the front of the airbox that controls that flap. So got rid of that and put an arm on there and a cable control. You have over here the heater valve, which on the original is servo controlled. So I got rid of that, put the International Scout heater valve on there, but had to run a cable to open and close that. The third solenoid that I had to deal with, this is under the dashboard, is the air handler that controls whether the air is going to the windshield or your face or your feet. And on the side of it is a solenoid. And once I removed the solenoid and played with the air handler, it turns out it's a drum that rotates, and depending on what position it's in determines where the air is blowing. So got rid of that and put another lever arm there and a cable there. For the cables, you can buy heater control cables, but it's a very stiff wire, and this is a pretty long travel. I found what actually worked the best was a high quality bicycle brake cable, the housing and the cable, and that seems to handle the bends better and can control the heater valve. Same thing for this lever here. Then we get to the electronics, but actually I will throw in also one other electronic that I did not realize is that, again, here's our airbox, here's the now cable operated heater valve, but also there is a little 12-volt motor that apparently brings the hot water from the engine up to the front. So apparently the water pump of the engine does not circulate much water up to the heater area here. So I thought I'd be able to get rid of all electronics, but this one I could not get rid of, so I had to put an extra switch on the console, because when you turn the heat on here, you also have to flip on this little motor to pump the hot air, or pump the hot water so you can get hot air. So I'm almost through my first 10 minutes here, so I'm going to click off and we'll go to part 2.